The President of the United States now speaking at the White House on an issue so important to millions and millions of working families. Let's listen in.
Family is also the bedrock of our lives, and we don't want a society in which folks are having to make a choice between those two things. And there are better decisions that we can make, and there are not so good decisions that we can make as a society to support this balance between work and family. Most of us, most of our days consist of work, family, and not much else. And those two spheres are constantly interacting with each other. When we're with our family, sometimes we're thinking about work. When we're at work, we're thinking about family. That's a pretty universal experience. It's true even when you are President of the United States. Now, I am lucky that my daughters were a bit older by the time I became president, so I never had to meet a world leader with Cheerios stuck to my pants. That has not happened. And I'm also lucky because we live above the store, so to speak. I have a very short commute. And as a consequence, we've been able to organize ourselves to have dinner with Michelle and the girls almost every night. And that's pretty much the first time we've been able to do that in our lives. But before I moved into the White House, I was away a lot, sometimes with work, sometimes with campaigning. Michelle was working full-time and was at home with the responsibility all too often of dealing with everything that the girls needed. And so we understand how lucky we are now, because there was a big chunk of time when we were doing what so many of you have to deal with every day, and that is figuring out how do we make this whole thing work. A lot of Americans are not as lucky as we have been. It is hard sometimes just to get by. Our businesses have created jobs for 51 consecutive months, 9.4 new jobs in all. But we all know somebody out there who's still looking for work. And there are a whole lot of people who are working harder than ever, but can't seem to get ahead and pay all the bills at the end of the month. Despite the fact that our economy has grown, and those of us at the very top have done very well, the average wage, the average income hasn't gone up for 15 years in any meaningful way. And that means that relative to 15 years ago, a lot of families just aren't that much better off. And the sacrifices they make for their families.
All right, we're going to quickly break away from the president because we're getting important news. He had an important conversation with the Russian President Putin today. Jim Acosta is our senior White House correspondent. Jim, tell us what we've learned. The president and Putin, they're on the phone. That doesn't happen every day.
It does not happen every day, and we just found out about this at the very end of White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest's very first briefing here at the White House. The press secretary saying that earlier this morning, President Obama and Vladimir Putin spoke via telephone, and they talked about the crisis in Ukraine, of course, talked about those separatists there. And the president, in that phone call, according to Josh Earnest, warned the Russian president that there will be costs if Moscow does not de-escalate that crisis there. The president leaning very heavily on Putin, saying that it is really up to the Russians to control those separatists, to send the message that they need to stop disrupting the scene there in eastern Ukraine. And the president making it clear in this phone call, according to Josh Earnest, that the U.S., along with its G7 partners, may move forward with some sort of sectoral sanctions. We heard last Friday, Wolf, of course, that they may be more of a scalpel-like sanction, I guess, that might be imposed as opposed to broad sectoral sanctions. But the president did warn about that in that phone call with Vladimir Putin, Wolf.
And the president continuing to speak now on the issue of working families and kids. We're going to continue to monitor that. That's an important issue for this president on this day. He's got so much on his plate right now, not only Putin and Russia and Ukraine and what's going on in Iraq, in Syria, in Egypt, in Libya. He's got a huge, huge agenda right now, and I know you're going to be reporting on this throughout the day. Jim Acosta, our man at the White House, thanks very, very much. That's it for me. We'll have a lot more coming up later today in the Situation Room. Remember, that airs 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. Newsroom. with Brooke Baldwin starts right now.